For 300 years, humanity walked softly among the stars. When the first human ships left Earth and found other life in the galaxy, they came with open hands. They came with smiles and gifts, and the hope that they would find friends among the stars. The Galactic Concorde was waiting for them. It was a group of 47 different species who had been traveling through space for thousands of years. They looked at these newcomers from a small blue planet and saw nothing special. The humans were young. They were new. They had so much to learn. Ambassador Elara Vasquez became the voice of humanity to the galaxy. She was a small woman with dark hair and calm eyes. She never raised her voice. She never made threats. When other species insulted humanity, she smiled and asked for another meeting. When they cheated humans in trade deals, she negotiated patiently for better terms. When they laughed at human culture and called it primitive, she invited them to visit Earth and see its beauty for themselves. Most of them never came. They did not think humans were worth their time. The Galactic Concorde had rules. Every species was supposed to be equal. Every species was supposed to have a voice. But some voices were louder than others. The old species, the powerful ones, they made the real decisions. Humanity asked for a seat on the High Council for 200 years. Every time, they were told to wait. Every time, they were told they had not proven themselves. So humans tried to prove themselves. They sent doctors to heal sick aliens on poor worlds. They sent engineers to fix broken ships. They shared their food, their music, their stories. They asked for nothing in return except friendship. The galaxy took everything humanity offered, and it gave nothing back. The Kithari were a proud species with scales like emeralds and eyes like gold. They decided that human shipping lanes were actually their territory. 67 times, their warships stopped human traders. They took cargo. They took ships. Sometimes they took lives. Each time, Ambassador Vasquez filed a complaint with the Concorde. Each time, nothing happened. The Vorix Imperium was even worse. They were tall beings with 4 arms and a hunger for power. They saw a human research station floating near a valuable asteroid field and decided they wanted it. They sent soldiers. They took the station. They held the human scientists as prisoners for 8 months. Ambassador Vasquez worked day and night to free them. She made deals. She gave up things humanity could not afford to lose. Finally, the scientists came home. The Vorix kept the station. The Concorde said this was a fair result. Through all of this, humanity stayed patient. They believed that kindness would win in the end. They believed that if they just kept trying, the galaxy would learn to respect them. They were wrong. The Dralith hegemony had been watching humanity for a long time. They were an ancient species, older than most. Their skin was gray and tough like stone. Their eyes were black and cold. They had built an empire by crushing everyone who stood in their way. High Sovereign Malthius ruled the Dralith with an iron fist. He sat on a throne made from the bones of his enemies, and he looked at humanity with disgust. These soft creatures with their soft hearts and their soft words, they made him sick. They were like insects, spreading across the galaxy, asking for friendship like beggars asking for food. He decided to teach them a lesson. He decided to teach the whole galaxy a lesson about what happened to the weak. Kepler 442b was a beautiful world. It had green fields and blue oceans and cities full of life. 17 million humans lived there. They were farmers and teachers and artists. They were mothers and fathers and children. They woke up every morning and worked hard and dreamed of the future. They never saw the Dralith ships coming. The attack came without warning. There was no declaration of war. There was no demand for surrender. The Dralith warships simply appeared in the sky and began to fire. They did not aim for military targets. There were no military targets. They aimed for cities. They aimed for schools. They aimed for hospitals. The people of Kepler 442b tried to run. They tried to hide. But there was nowhere to go. The Dralith ships hunted them down with terrible patience. They burned the fields so no one could eat. They poisoned the water so no one could drink. They killed and killed and killed until there was no one left to kill. 17 million human beings died in 3 days. The Dralith broadcast the massacre across every channel in the galaxy. They wanted everyone to see. High Sovereign Malthius appeared on screens across 1,000 worlds, standing in front of the burning ruins of a human city. "This is what happens to vermin," he said. "This is what happens to those who forget their place." The galaxy watched. The Concorde called an emergency meeting. They talked and talked and talked. And in the end, They did nothing. The Dralith were too powerful. The humans were too weak. It was sad, they said. It was unfortunate. But what could they do? Ambassador Ilara Vasquez sat alone in her office and watched the footage from Kepler 442b. She saw the bodies in the streets. She saw the children who would never grow up. She saw 300 years of patience and kindness and hope burning in alien fire. Something changed in her eyes. Something that had been soft became hard. Something that had been warm became cold. She stood up slowly. She walked to her window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 17 million of her people were ashes floating in the wind. Somewhere out there, the Dralith were celebrating their victory. Her hands did not shake when she reached for her communicator. Her voice did not waver when she spoke. This is Ambassador Vasquez. Recall all diplomatic teams immediately. Cancel all humanitarian missions. She paused. Activate the Prometheus contingency. On the other end, there was a moment of shocked silence. Then a quiet voice asked, Ambassador, are you certain? Ilara Vasquez looked at the stars one more time. She thought of all the times she had smiled when she wanted to scream. All the times she had asked for peace when she wanted to demand justice. All the times she had believed that kindness would be enough. The time for kindness is over, she said. Send the message. Within hours, every human embassy in the galaxy went dark. Every human ship turned toward home. Every human diplomat delivered the same message to their confused hosts. Just one word. Enough. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. They thought humanity was running away. They thought the soft little species from the soft little planet had finally learned its lesson. They could not have been more wrong. Humanity had been kind for 300 years. That kindness was now dead, buried alongside 17 million innocent souls. And the galaxy was about to meet the humanity that had been hiding behind that kindness all along. The galaxy had never seen the true face of humanity. For 300 years, the Terran Confederation had shown the universe only what it wanted them to see. Smiling diplomats, helpful doctors, friendly traders, a young species eager to make friends and prove themselves worthy. It was all true. But it was not the whole truth. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the TCS Retribution and watched his fleet come to life around him. 2,000 warships powered up their engines. 2,000 warships that had never appeared on any official record. 2,000 warships that the galaxy did not know existed. The Retribution was the largest vessel humanity had ever built. It was black as space itself, designed to be invisible until it wanted to be seen. Its weapons could crack a planet in half. Its shields could stop anything the galaxy could throw at it. And it was just the flagship. There were 11 more fleets exactly like this one, hidden in asteroid fields and empty corners of space where no one ever looked. Admiral Chen was an old man with gray hair and steady hands. He had spent his entire career preparing for a day he hoped would never come. Now that day was here, and he felt no joy. Only cold, hard purpose. The Prometheus contingency is active, his second-in-command reported. All fleets are responding. All assets are in position. Chen nodded slowly. What about our people in the field? Intelligence networks are going active across the Concord. Every operative is ready. This was the secret that humanity had kept for 300 years. While they smiled and negotiated, they had been building. While they offered aid and friendship, they had been planning. Every human doctor who served on alien worlds was also a trained soldier. Every human trader who visited alien ports was also a spy. Every human scientist who worked in alien labs was also gathering information. They had mapped every weakness. They had studied every enemy. They had prepared for the day when kindness would fail. General Secretary Yuki Tanaka had replaced Ambassador Vasquez as the voice of humanity. But she was not a diplomat. She was a warrior who had spent decades wearing a diplomat's mask. Now she could finally take it off. She addressed the Galactic Concord one final time. The council chamber was full of confused and worried aliens. They had heard rumors of strange human ships. They had noticed human embassies going dark. They did not understand what was happening. Tanaka stood before them in a black military uniform. Her face showed no emotion. Her voice was cold as ice. For 300 years, we asked to be your equals. You refused. She looked around the chamber slowly. For 300 years, we asked for justice. You ignored us. For 300 years, we gave you our friendship, our help, our kindness, and you repaid us with contempt. The Kethari ambassador started to speak. Tonica silenced him with a look that made him shrink back in his chair. The Kethari attacked our ships 67 times. We have records of every incident. The Vorix stole our station and held our people hostage. We have records of that too. Her voice grew harder. We have records of everything. Every insult. Every crime. Every time you laughed at us behind our backs. She activated a display behind her. Star maps appeared showing military positions across the galaxy. Human positions. You thought we were building hospitals and schools. We were. But we were also building fleets. You thought we were training doctors and teachers. We were. But we were also training soldiers. You thought we were weak because we chose to be kind. She leaned forward, and every alien in the room felt a chill run down their spine. You were fools. At that moment, across the galaxy, humanity revealed itself. In Kethari space, human merchants who had been trading peacefully for decades opened hidden compartments in their ships and revealed weapons. They transmitted detailed maps of Kethari military bases to the human fleets. In Vorix territory, human aid workers who had been helping the sick and hungry used their access to disable communication networks. The Vorix suddenly found themselves blind and deaf. In 100 different places, human operatives who had spent years building trust activated their true missions. Information flooded back to humanity's hidden command centers. Information about defenses, supply lines, fleet movements, and secrets that alien governments had thought were safe. The galaxy had invited humanity into their homes. They had let humans see everything. They had never imagined that those helpful, friendly humans were watching and waiting and remembering. High Sovereign Maltheus received reports of the human activity and laughed. Let them play their games, he thought. His fleet was the mightiest in the galaxy. His warriors were the strongest. These soft humans could reveal all the hidden ships they wanted. It would not save them. He ordered his admirals to prepare for war. He expected the humans to come begging for peace within weeks. Admiral Chen received word that the Dralith were mobilizing. He looked at the tactical display showing the positions of both fleets. The Dralith had 1,200 warships in their immortal fleet. They had never lost a battle in 5,000 years. Chen had 2,000 ships in his fleet alone, and he had 11 more fleets just like it. Send a message to High Sovereign Maltheus, Chen said quietly. Tell him that we are coming. Tell him that we will arrive in 3 days. Tell him that we are giving him those 3 days to evacuate civilians from military areas. His officers looked at him in surprise. Sir, that gives him time to prepare his defenses. Chen smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. I know. I want him to prepare. I want him to gather his best ships and his best warriors. I want him to build his strongest defenses. His eyes grew cold. And then I want him to watch as we go through them like they are not even there. I want him to understand that all his strength means nothing. That his 5,000 years of conquest end now. The message was sent. Maltheus received it with fury. He called every ship in his empire to defend the homeworld. He gathered the greatest military force the Dralith had ever assembled, and 3 days later, he watched the sky fill with human warships. More ships than he had ever seen. More ships than he thought could exist. The kindness of humanity had hidden something terrible. Something patient. Something that had been preparing for this moment since the day humanity first reached the stars. Now that kindness was gone, and only the terrible thing remained. The Dralith hegemony had murdered 17 million innocent humans. They were about to learn the price of that crime. High Sovereign Maltheus had studied humanity for decades. He knew how many ships they had. He knew what weapons they carried. He knew their tactics and strategies and weaknesses. His analysts had calculated exactly how long it would take to crush them. 20 years, they said. 20 years and acceptable losses, and humanity would be nothing more than a memory. His analysts had based their calculations on lies. Humanity had spent 300 years feeding false information to the galaxy. They had shown everyone small ships with weak weapons. They had pretended to struggle with technology that other species considered basic. They had acted like children learning to walk. It was all a performance. And now the performance was over. The Battle of Dralith Prime began at dawn. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the Retribution as his fleet emerged from hyperspace. Around him, 2,000 warships took their positions. In front of him, the Dralith Immortal Fleet waited in perfect formation. 1,200 ships that had never known defeat. 1,200 ships crewed by warriors who had conquered 100 worlds. Maltheus sent a final message. Surrender now, humans. Beg for mercy, and I may let some of you live as slaves. Chen did not respond with words. He responded with fire. Human weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Phase disruptors that passed through shields like they were not there. Gravity lances that crushed ships into balls of metal. Quantum missiles that appeared inside enemy vessels without warning. The Dralith had expected a battle. What they got was a slaughter. The first wave of human attacks destroyed 300 Dralith ships in 4 minutes. The immortal fleet, shocked and confused, tried to return fire. Their weapons splashed harmlessly against human shields. Their missiles were shot down before they could reach their targets. Their fighters were swatted from the sky like insects. Admiral Threk, commander of the immortal fleet, screamed orders at his captains. Form up, concentrate fire, find their weakness. But there was no weakness to find. Human ships moved with impossible speed and precision. They seemed to know exactly where the Dralith would be before they got there, because they did know. Human spies had been inside the Dralith military for generations. They knew every code, every formation, every secret. The Dralith were fighting blind against an enemy that saw everything. By midday, the immortal fleet was down to 600 ships. By afternoon, 300. By evening, less than 50 battered survivors fled into hyperspace, carrying the terrible news to distant colonies. The Battle of Dralith Prime lasted 6 hours. It had been expected to last years, but humanity was not satisfied with a simple naval victory. They had come for something more. Commander Yara Okonkwo led the ground assault. She was a tall woman with dark skin and eyes that had seen too much death. She had lost family on Kepler 442b, a sister, 2 nephews. She did not speak about them. She did not need to. Her actions would speak for her. The dropships fell from the sky like rain. Dralith ground forces, the famous Stone Legions, formed defensive lines around the capital city. They had conquered 1,000 worlds with their strength. They had never been defeated on the ground. They had never faced humans fighting with nothing left to lose. Human soldiers did not attack in neat lines like other species. They came from everywhere at once. Small teams that struck and vanished. Snipers that killed from distances the Dralith thought impossible. Explosions that appeared without warning inside supposedly secure buildings. Every human soldier was trained from childhood, not just in combat, but in thinking. They made decisions faster than Dralith commanders could give orders. They adapted to changing situations instantly. They turned every disadvantage into an advantage. A Dralith general, watching his forces crumble, sent a desperate message to the human commander. "Why are you doing this? You were the peaceful ones. You were supposed to be civilized." Okonkwo's response was broadcast across the planet. Her voice was calm and cold. "We are civilized. That is why we gave you 300 years to choose peace. Civilization is not weakness, it is restraint." She paused. "You mistook our restraint for inability. That was a mistake you will not live to repeat." The Stone Legions broke. Warriors who had never known fear learned it that day. They threw down their weapons and surrendered by the thousands. Those who kept fighting were killed without mercy. High Sovereign Malthus tried to flee. His personal transport was caught by human interceptors before it could leave the atmosphere. He was dragged from the wreckage and brought before Commander Okonkwo in chains. She looked at him with eyes empty of pity. 17 million people, she said quietly. Farmers, teachers, children. They never hurt anyone. They just wanted to live their lives. Malthus tried to summon his old pride. They were vermin. They were beneath. Okonkwo hit him. Not hard enough to kill, just hard enough to silence. "You will live," she said. "You will live to see everything you built destroyed. You will live to see your empire become ours. And you will spend the rest of your days knowing that this is the price of what you did." The conquest continued. Human fleets spread across Dralith space like a wave. World after world fell. Not through destruction, but through overwhelming force. Humanity did not burn cities like the Dralith had. They captured them. They occupied them. They raised human flags over Dralith capitals, 17 worlds. One for every million humans who had died on Kepler 442b. The price humanity had set, and the price they claimed. The galaxy watched in horrified silence. The species they had mocked for 300 years had just destroyed one of the greatest powers in known space. Not in decades, not in years, in weeks. The Galactic Concord held emergency meetings. What should they do? Could they stop humanity? Should they even try? General Secretary Tanaka answered their questions before they could ask them. "We are not done," she announced. "The Dralith were just the beginning. Every species that wronged humanity will answer for their crimes." She looked directly into the cameras, and every alien watching felt her eyes on them. "You taught us that kindness is worthless in this galaxy. You taught us that only strength matters." Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried across light years. "So here is our strength. Look at it. Remember it. And pray that we choose to show you the mercy you never showed us." The message ended, and across the galaxy, species that had once laughed at humanity began to tremble. The Dralith hegemony was finished. But humanity was just getting started. The Galactic Concord had never known fear like this. For thousands of years, the great powers of the galaxy had done as they pleased. The strong took from the weak. The old dismissed the young. Justice was a word they spoke but never practiced. Everyone knew the rules. Power decided everything. Now humanity had power, and the galaxy was terrified of what they would do with it. General Secretary Yuki Tanaka stood before the full Concord Council. Behind her, holographic displays showed the burning ruins of the Dralith hegemony. 17 conquered worlds, the immortal fleet, reduced to scattered debris, the great High Sovereign Malthus in chains. This was what humanity could do when pushed too far. The chamber was silent. Ambassadors who had spent decades ignoring human complaints now hung on every word. Species that had laughed at human weakness now struggled to hide their terror. Tanaka let the silence stretch. She wanted them to feel it. She wanted them to understand. 300 years, she finally said. For 300 years, we came to this chamber and asked for fairness. We asked to be treated like equals. We asked for justice when we were wronged. Her voice was calm, but there was ice beneath it. And you did nothing. The Kethari ambassador shifted in his seat. The Vorix delegation would not meet her eyes. A dozen other species who had wronged humanity over the centuries found sudden interest in the floor. "We have records," Tanaka continued. "Complete records of every crime committed against our people. Every ship seized. Every station stolen. Every trade deal broken. Every human life taken." She gestured, and lists began scrolling across the displays. Names, dates, details. "We remember everything." The Kethari ambassador found his voice. "Surely we can discuss compensation, trade agreements, economic." "You had 300 years to discuss." Tanaka cut him off. "You chose not to. Now you will listen." She stepped forward, and several ambassadors actually flinched. "We did not want war. We did not want conquest. We wanted friends. Partners. Equals." Her hands tightened into fists. "You forced this. Every time you ignored us. Every time you cheated us. Every time you looked at our kindness and saw weakness to exploit. You created this moment." Admiral Chen's voice came through the chamber speakers. "General Secretary, our fleets are in position throughout conquered space. We have clear shots on every military target. We await your orders." The chamber erupted in panic. Ambassadors shouted. Some tried to flee. Security forces moved to block the exits, but they were not needed. Human soldiers appeared at every door, weapons ready. Tanaka raised her hand, and silence fell. "We could end you. All of you. Right now, today. We could burn your homeworlds like the Dralith burned ours." She let that sink in. "But we will not, because despite everything you have done, we are not you." The Vorix Supreme Commander stepped forward, 4 arms crossed in defiance. "Then what do you want? Surrender? Slavery?" Tanaka shook her head. "We want what we always wanted. Justice, equality. A galaxy where species treat each other with basic decency." She smiled, and it held no warmth. "The only difference is that now we have the power to make it happen." She activated another display. A document appeared. A treaty unlike anything the galaxy had seen. "These are our terms. You will read them. You will accept them. And you will follow them." The terms were harsh but fair. Every species that had wronged humanity would pay reparations, not in blood or slaves, but in resources and territory. The Kethari would give up the shipping lanes they had stolen. The Vorix would return the research stations they had seized, along with compensation for the scientists they had held hostage. But the biggest changes were for the entire Concord. The old council was dissolved. A new council would be formed where every species had equal representation. No more backroom deals. No more powerful species ignoring the rules. Every crime would be investigated. Every punishment would be enforced. Humanity would guarantee it. With their fleets, with their soldiers, with the cold, patient strength they had hidden for 3 centuries. You made us show you what we truly are, Tanaka said. We did not want this power. We did not ask for this responsibility. But you gave us no choice. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every ambassador. So now we will do what we always tried to do, build something better, something fair, something just. She stepped back. You have 1 hour to accept these terms. After that, Admiral Chen begins military operations. She paused at the door. Choose wisely. She left them in terrified silence. The debate lasted 43 minutes. Some species wanted to fight. The Vorix Supreme Commander argued that they should unite against humanity, form an alliance of all the races that feared human power. But others remembered what had happened to the Dralith, the immortal fleet, destroyed in 6 hours. The Stone Legions, broken in a single day. 17 worlds, conquered in weeks. And that was just 1 human fleet against 1 enemy. Humanity had 12 fleets. And they had been preparing for this for 300 years. One by one, the great powers of the galaxy bent the knee. The Kethari signed first, their scales pale with fear. The Vorix followed, their pride shattered. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia accepted terms from a race they had dismissed as children just months before. When the last signature was recorded, General Secretary Tanaka returned to the chamber. Congratulations, she said. You have chosen peace. You have chosen to build a better galaxy. Her voice softened, just slightly. This is what we always wanted. We did not want to conquer you. We wanted to work with you, to grow with you, to build something together. She looked at the treaty, now signed by every species in the Concord. We will enforce these rules fairly. We will punish those who break them equally, including our own people if necessary. We will be the guardians of justice that this galaxy has always needed. Her eyes hardened again. But never forget why we are here. Never forget what you forced us to become. She turned to leave, then paused. And never, ever mistake our mercy for weakness again. The door closed behind her. And the Galactic Concord began its transformation from a tool of the powerful into a true union of equals. It would not be easy. It would take years, decades perhaps. But humanity would see it done. They had been patient for 300 years. They could be patient for a few more. But their patience now came with warships and soldiers and the cold promise of consequences. The galaxy had wanted to teach humanity its place. Instead, humanity had taught the galaxy a new way to exist. 10 years had passed since the burning of Kepler 442b. The galaxy was a different place now. Better in many ways, though the scars of the past still showed. Human warships patrolled the trade lanes, their black hulls a constant reminder of what happened when peace failed. Human diplomats sat at the head of every important council, their words carrying the weight of 12 fleets behind them. The Terran Confederation had become the Terran Ascendancy. No one laughed at humanity anymore. Ambassador Ilara Vasquez sat in her office on the Galactic Council station, looking out at the stars. Her hair had turned silver in the years since the war. Lines had appeared around her eyes, but those eyes were still steady, still calm, still seeing everything. She had returned to diplomacy after the fighting ended, not because she had forgotten what the galaxy had done to her people, but because someone had to build the peace they had won with blood. Her door chimed. A young Kethari entered, his emerald scales bright with youth. He was a new diplomat, one of the first generation to grow up under the new order. He had never known a galaxy where the strong simply took from the weak. Ambassador Vasquez, he said nervously. I have completed the trade agreement with the Outer Rim colonies, but I wanted to ask you something, if I may. Ilara smiled and gestured to a chair. Of course. What troubles you? The young Kethari sat, his golden eyes uncertain. I have been reading the histories, about the war, about what happened before. He hesitated. I do not understand something. Ask. Your people had the power to destroy everyone. After what the Dralith did, after how the Conquered treated you, no one would have blamed you. He looked at her with genuine confusion. Why did you stop? Why did you show mercy to species that had shown you none? Ilara was quiet for a long moment. Outside her window, stars burned in the endless dark. Somewhere out there, The ashes of Kepler 442b still drifted on solar winds. 17 million souls who would never come home. Do you know what the hardest thing about war is? She finally asked. The young diplomat shook his head. It is not the fighting. It is not the killing. It is remembering who you were before it started. She turned to face him. We were kind because we believed kindness was the right way to live. We helped others because helping others made the galaxy better. When the Dralith burned our people, when the Concord did nothing, we had a choice. She stood and walked to the window. We could become like them. Use our power to crush and dominate and take revenge for every wrong we had suffered. We could have burned the Dralith homeworld like they burned ours. We could have conquered the Kethari, enslaved the Vorics, destroyed everyone who ever hurt us. Why didn't you? Alara turned back to him, and her eyes held a depth of feeling he could not fully understand. Because then they would have won. Not the war, but something more important. They would have proven that kindness is truly weakness. That power is all that matters. That the galaxy can only work through fear and force. She shook her head slowly. We refused to let them be right. She returned to her desk and sat down. Our kindness was never weakness. It was a choice. We chose to be gentle because we knew what we were capable of. We hoped we would never have to show the galaxy our true strength. Her voice grew soft. They forced us to show them, but we did not let that change who we are. We conquered the Dralith, but we did not exterminate them. We rule their worlds, but we rule them fairly. We have power over the galaxy, but we use that power to build, not destroy. The young Kethari was silent, thinking. My grandfather was a ship captain, he finally said. He was one of the ones who attacked human traders. He never spoke about it, but I found his records after he died. He looked down at his hands. I am ashamed of what my people did. Alara reached across the desk and touched his arm gently. You did not do those things. You are not responsible for the crimes of your ancestors. She smiled. But you are responsible for what comes next. The galaxy is changing. Species that were once enemies are learning to work together. Old hatreds are fading. New friendships are forming. She stood and walked him to the door. That is why we showed mercy. Not because we forgave what was done to us. We will never forget Kepler 442b, but because revenge would have destroyed any chance for a better future. She opened the door. Go. Finish your trade agreement. Help build the galaxy we always dreamed of. The young Kethari left, but her words stayed with him for the rest of his life. On the former Dralith homeworld, now called New Promise, High Sovereign Malthius died in a human prison. He had spent his last years teaching Dralith history to human students, watching as his empire became a thriving part of the Ascendancy. The Dralith people, freed from his cruel rule, had begun to build something new, something better than they had ever known under the hegemony. On Kepler 442b, now a memorial world, 17 million names were carved into a wall of black stone that stretched for miles. Humans and aliens alike came to read those names, to remember what hatred and cruelty had cost. At the base of the memorial, a simple message was carved in 100 different languages. We did not want to be conquerors. We wanted to be friends. You chose which one we became. General Secretary Tanaka retired after 15 years of guiding the new order. Admiral Chen returned to Earth and spent his final days teaching young officers about strategy and, more importantly, about restraint. Commander Okonkwo became the first human to lead a mixed-species peacekeeping force, protecting the weak across the galaxy. And Ambassador Ilara Vasquez, who had smiled through 3 centuries of insults and finally said, enough, became the most respected leader the galaxy had ever known, not because she was the strongest, but because she used strength wisely. One day, a journalist asked her to summarize humanity's journey in a single sentence. She thought for a moment, then smiled. We offered the galaxy our hand in friendship. When they slapped it away, we made a fist. And when they finally learned to shake hands properly, we opened our fist again. She paused. The hand was always the same. The choice of what to do with it was always theirs. The journalist wrote this down. But he knew it was not quite right. Humanity had not simply returned to who they were before. They were different now. Harder in some ways, wiser in others. They smiled more carefully. They trusted more slowly. They never forgot what the galaxy had taught them, but they still helped those in need. They still dreamed of a better future. They still believed that kindness, backed by strength, could change everything. The galaxy had thought humanity was weak. They had learned that humanity was the strongest species of all, not because of their weapons or their fleets or their hidden armies, but because they had the strength to be kind in a universe that rewarded cruelty, and the wisdom to know when kindness had to end. The kindness of humanity had ended once. It had shown the galaxy what lay beneath. Now, slowly, carefully, that kindness was returning, different than before, stronger, more certain of its own worth, and the galaxy, finally, had learned to deserve it.